So welcome everybody. This is good morning. This is the second day of our annual Wintersman seminar. Um, I'll just know on the technical level that those of you who are attendees would love for you to join us as panelists if possible so you can participate, sort of enter the Beit Midrash, enter the room as it were, and be able to speak up freely. If not, then you can of course remain as attendees, and I think you can convey your comments and questions via chat. Is that correct, Kayla? I think I'm right about that. Okay, terrific. And to everyone else who's joining, here or on, we'll get up a live stream. Terrific to have you with us for the second day of the seminar. I don't want to belabor things, but just for those of you who weren't with us yesterday, I'm going to remind us that, or remind you that, again, we're in a 3-day seminar and focusing in this 11:15 a.m. Eastern slot on living donations as opposed to the 12:30 slot, which is about posthumous donations. This slot is about living donations. And yesterday we heard a wonderful introduction to the halachic issues. And beyond the halachic, general, we could say Torah sources, perspectives, generative precedents to help us think through the propriety or perhaps according to some, the obligation of living organ donations when it's safe, kidney donations in specific. But we felt it important to include not only sort of theoretical learning. Yesterday I had some practical learning as well, but not only theoretical learning, but also some direction as to the practicalities, right? How might one who's interested in being a donor, and I should also note that for those who are on the receiving end, the recipients as individuals and or their families, what should one know? How does one go about entering into that whole world? So we have with us Rabbi Josh Sturm, who is the director of outreach of a wonderful organization called Renewal, which specializes in this field. I'll let him articulate the exact raison d'etre and the exact project and exactly what you do. But I just want to say thank you to him. We had a conversation a few weeks back, and it was really a pleasure to get to know him a bit and what drew him to the field and what he does. And I'm so thrilled that he's able to be with us this morning and share with our learning community as part of our Beit Midrash about the work that they do with Renewal and share some ideas. I just want to say, lest I forget, that I invite everybody after this session to stick around for the 12:30 session with Rabbi Reifman for part 2 of his really terrific and provocative series on the brainstem death controversy. So without further ado, Rabbi Sturm, thank you again, and I'm just going to mute myself and listen along.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be able to be here and to learn together with everybody. I am here representing Renewal, and I wanted to just share a little bit about Renewal. And by the way, I'm more than happy if this becomes a discussion. If people want to ask questions along the way, feel free to interrupt me. If you're just an attendee and you want to just put a question in the Q&A, that's fine too. Whatever you like. So Renewal has been around now for actually, we just celebrated our 17-year anniversary. And in that time, it's really been remarkable when we look back and think about it. We actually just celebrated transplant number 1,000. So we've been involved now in over 1,000 transplants. It was actually a couple of months ago. So we're already in the 1,030s range right now, which is just a remarkable testament to the power of the Jewish community specifically, because that is what we're a proud Jewish organization. And that certainly is where our home base is. The overwhelming majority of our donors, 95+%, are coming from the Jewish community. Most are coming from the Orthodox Jewish community, although not exclusively, but that tends to be where the statistics are. Although our recipients are coming from all walks of Jewish life. So I want to just get into a little bit about when Renewal started. So back in 2006, our founder, his name is Mendy Reiner. He's actually a businessman. He was involved in real estate and banking. He had no intention of starting an organization, but he found himself in a waiting room and he was waiting to speak to somebody, not even a doctor's office, just waiting to speak to somebody. And there was a gentleman there who looked, in Mendy's words, he looked drunk. He was disheveled. He just didn't look like a person is supposed to, the way a person is supposed to appear. And Mendy had recognized him from around a little bit. And the man said to Mendy, he said, "Can you help me?" Mendy's a very generous guy. So he reached in his wallet, he pulled out a $20 bill, and he said, "Here." And the man said, "No, that's not what I mean." And he said, "Okay." He reached in his wallet again, pulled out another $20 bill. And the man said, "No, I need a kidney." To which Mendy responded, "What does that even mean?" Remember, this was 2006. There weren't that many altruistic kidney donors walking the earth, certainly not in the Jewish community at that point. There certainly were some, but definitely not a huge number. So Mendy really had never heard of the idea of kidney donation before. And the man started to explain to him that a person can donate a kidney and he could save a life. So Mendy himself wasn't a candidate at that time for being a kidney donor, but he said, "Listen, I don't know if this is going to do you any good, but here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to run an ad in one of the local Jewish papers." This was in Borough Park. "And I'll run an ad, and let's see if anything comes from it. That's what I'm willing to do for you." So they did. They ran an ad for the next month or two, and it said something along the lines of the ads we had. Today we have a wonderful, talented graphic design artist that designs beautiful flyers for each and every single recipient that, or potential recipient, that comes through our doors, and we help them to advertise it and strategize about it, all that kind of stuff. I'll get to that. But in those days, he was a one-man operation, and Mendy didn't know from graphic design. So the ad basically just said, "Father of 3 needs a kidney," and he put a cell number in it. They figured I did my part, I did my good deed for the day, and that's it. Well, lo and behold, he got a bunch of phone calls of people saying, "I would be interested in donating my kidney." And he got a bunch of other phone calls from people who said, "Well, actually, would you do this for my aunt? She needs a kidney." Or my brother, my father. All these people are in need of a kidney. And Mendy realized that, there's really a need for an organization. He didn't realize how much the idea of kidney failure was existed in our community. I'm not saying that it exists in a greater percentage than other communities, but it exists in a fair percentage in communities all across the world. And there are a lot of people that need kidneys. And so he realized the need for an organization. But Mendy, as I said, is a businessman. He's not in what they call an oskin, somebody who's interested in starting organizations and doing that kind of work. So instead, Mendy went to some other organizations, and he said to the other organizations, he said, "Listen, here's the idea. You guys run with it. Take it. I'll give you some seed money and get started. Do it." He got laughed out of the offices of organization after organization. They told him, "You're dreaming. Nobody's donating kidneys. It's not going to happen. You'll find one guy. It's not happening. There's no organization here." Well, Mendy said, "If that's the case, if nobody else is willing to step up, then I'll do it." And he did. And he hired some people. And slowly but surely, we started with the goal of that first year back in 2006. Our goal was to do 1 transplant. Figure save a life. We know the Gemara tells us that he who saves a life is as if he has saved an entire world. Mishnah and Sanhedrin. So he figured, let's do it. Let's do 1 transplant a year. That'll be a success. Well, that first year, we were actually fortunate, thank God, to do 2 transplants. The next year, figured we'll raise our goals. If we did 2, we should be able to do 4. We actually did 5 the next year. Fast forward to this year, where we are just closing out the year. I'm actually in the middle of doing our final year-end numbers, but somewhere in the 130 range, about 130 transplants that we've been able to do this year. And that's really how Renewal has grown organically, slowly but surely, as community by community has learned about kidney donation. To the point now, I was joking with one of the newspapers in one of the modern Orthodox communities that we are very close with. So I was joking with the editor of the newspaper, because I wanted him to run a story about renewal, a story about kidney donation. And my joke to him was that I said, here, I have got a good catch for you of why you should run this story. And of course he did. And it was just an interesting story. And then I said, when we first started getting in touch with you, this particular paper we've been working together with for about 9-10 years now. I said, when we first started getting in touch with you, all I had to do was tell you that there was somebody in your community who donated a kidney and you were willing to give it the front page. Now, thankfully, it's become normalized that it's not front page worthy anymore when somebody donates a kidney, which is incredible to realize that we've come that far, where the idea of somebody becoming a kidney donor is no longer worthy of the front page. I need another hook. Shows how far the Jewish people have come in this regard, specifically with regards to living donation. And I know you heard from Rabbi Jason yesterday, who is we are proud to count him among the ranks of our kidney donors. I believe he is donor 970 something. I forget exactly. Each donor gets a unique number. I'm sure he went through all of the different halachic ins and outs of kidney donation. It was a hurdle in the very beginning because people had this notion that Jews don't donate organs. And you're going to hear later, I'm sure, about the deceased donation, all of that. But on the living donation front, our goal has been to demystify that. It's simply not true, as is apparent from the diverse body of kidney donors that we have. In fact, I will tell you, we have, just to give you a little bit of statistics, Teaneck, New Jersey, I believe, has 42 kidney donors right now. 5 Towns, I believe, is up to 53. The largest community, the largest number of kidney donors in one area, concentrated in one area, is actually New Square, Skver Hasidim. We are at about 75 kidney donors from Skver. I've never seen any study that's examined this, but I would just say anecdotally, I would assume that they have per capita more kidney donors than any other community in the world. 75, the whole community is only like 1,300 families, and they have 75 kidney donors amongst their ranks. It's unbelievable. The Satmar community gives very strongly as well. Lakewood in the yeshivish world gives as well. I mentioned the modern Orthodox world. The Syrians are big givers as well. And when I say givers here, many of these communities are also financial supporters, but that's certainly not what I'm talking about right now. They have tons and tons of kidney donors. And that's been something we've worked really hard to be able to accomplish, to really, as I said, to normalize this concept of kidney donation. I want to share with you I'll share with you first another statistic that we should all really be quite proud of, because over the last 11 years or so, Renewal has been responsible for somewhere in the range of 15 to 18% of all altruistic kidney transplants across the United States. Now, as I said before, let me just define that term. It's a terrible term, altruistic. In my book, in Renewal's book, anybody who donates a kidney is altruistic. But the technical definition that the hospital uses of altruistic is when the donor and recipient don't know each other. And that is most of the transplants we do are where they don't know each other. Just by comparison, in the United States last year, there were just 371 altruistic kidney donations. 371. The United States has a population of about 330, 340 million people. You're talking about 1 in a million, roughly. That doesn't even qualify as a drop in the bucket. It is such a small percentage. And Renewal has been responsible over the last 11 years or so for about 15 to 18% of all altruistic kidney transplants across the country. Now, if we take that statistic and understand it on a deeper level, Renewal, as I said, is a proud Jewish organization. The Jewish population in the United States is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2%. That means 2% is responsible for about 15 to 18%. But I'm going to take it one step further, because as I mentioned, although it's not exclusively, but close to it, the kidneys are coming almost exclusively from the Orthodox Jewish population. The Orthodox Jewish population in the United States is roughly 0.2%. 0.2% has been responsible for roughly 15 to 18%. I mean, talk about punching above one's weight. It's unbelievable. And the question is why? It's something that I've studied over the last many, many years. Is what is it about the Jewish community that really gets galvanizes this support? The answers that I've come up with from my experience, because I have spoken in different venues, I have spoken in different crowds, from the Orthodox to conservative to Reform to secular to non-Jewish, and I'll put it the way that one, I'm not going to mention a specific denomination, one lay leader from had mentioned to me, when honestly I complained to them that there weren't that many people that came out to listen and to learn about it. And their response was, you have to understand why it's fundamentally different than where you are. I said, okay, explain. He said, well, in your community, they might not know each other, but they see each other. They're there on a more regular basis, whether it's in shul, whether it's in school, whether it's in social settings. There's a lot more of a sense of community. And it really struck at me very strongly that I deal with a lot of different people, a lot of different patients that need kidneys. And one of the things that we offer them is we do these awareness programs where we go into their community and we educate their community about kidney donation. And most importantly, we do swabbing, which is an actual test to see if they could be a potential match. It's a Q-tip to the inside of their cheek to see if they could be a potential match. And I do swabbing in these communities. And it's kind of sad when you realize that people who are not part of a community, it's so difficult. I remember meeting with a lady in Queens, and one of the things that I do is I meet with them and see, well, where can we market this? Where's your network? Because the honest truth is, even though you'll see on the news from time to time, this person put a billboard up in Times Square and this person wore a t-shirt in Disney World that said, I need a kidney, something like that. Those are 1 in a million stories that work. In fact, the billboard I don't even think worked. They very rarely work those kind of stories. So how do people find kidneys? They find it by going to their communities and a little bit beyond their communities, drawing a circle around their network and then a circle around that, and trying to reach those second and third circles of the people who know somebody who knows somebody. That's really been the most effective way of finding these kidney donors. So I remember sitting down with this lady in Queens. She's a secular Jew. And I was talking to her. I said, well, let's figure out your network. Tell me about your family. I have an elderly mother, and that's about it. I have a cousin, but we haven't spoken in 50 years. No other family to speak of. Okay, not everybody's blessed to have a large family. Tell me about your community. You have any sense of community? Well, I live in a co-op, and my neighbor across the hall sometimes takes in my mail for me. I don't really know her name, but I guess that's part of my community. Okay, something to work on. Anybody else in the building? Nope. Anybody else in the neighboring buildings? Nope. What do you do for work? I'm a librarian. Oh, okay, that's something to work with. Do you have a network of librarians that you're close with? Yes. And that's what we worked on. 8 librarians. That was her whole world, was 8 librarians. She had nothing else to speak of whatsoever but these 8 librarians. And I just remember being so taken aback by the idea that, people, I take it for granted that I'm part of a community, but it's so significant. And that's what we've seen in Renewal as a successful model, is communities. Now, again, we'll work with everything. And in this case, we did work with her librarian community, and we were fortunate to find the kidney donor. In the end, it wasn't from that community. We were able to match her up with somebody else from a completely different situation. But we were able to help her, and we were very fortunate to be able to do so. I'll just tell you another anecdote about this particular individual. I went to visit her in the hospital a day later, 2 days later after her transplant. The recipient is usually in the hospital for about 5 days. The donor is there usually for about 2 days. Recipient's there usually for 5 to 7. So I remember visiting her on, I believe it was day 3, and she was feeling great. She was so excited. I said, why are you so excited? I said, I know you just got a kidney and I know you feel great, but what's something different? What's so exciting? She said, I just spoke to the I don't even know, the orderly, and they're bringing me lunch. Okay, what's so exciting about lunch? She said, no, you don't understand. They're bringing me a banana. I said, a banana? Okay, I like bananas. She said, no, you don't get it. She said, I've been on dialysis for a long time. Dialysis is when the kidneys are not working. In order to extend life, they go through dialysis, which cleanses the blood, which is what the kidneys do primarily. And she said, well, I was on dialysis. And even before that, I had to be so careful about what I ate, and specifically potassium. I wasn't allowed to have too much potassium, or really very, very little potassium. Bananas are full of potassium. Bananas are my favorite fruit. And I haven't had one in 8 years. She said, I'm about to have a banana. This is the greatest thing ever. She ate that banana, and it was just, again, you learn to appreciate the small things in life and the finer things. But let me get back to a little bit more about the idea of kidney donation. So I'll share with you a story of motivation, because one of the things I love doing is I love meeting with our kidney donors and asking them what motivated them to do this. And each one has a unique story. And I'll share with you a story of Shalom. Shalom lives in Lakewood, New Jersey. He was fortunate to retire at a young age. He's in his 50s. And he sits and learns all day long. He sits in the Beit Midrash and just learns all day long in Lakewood. And he donated a kidney. And when he donated his kidney, I said, well, why'd you do it? He said, well, do you remember, this goes back about 8.5 years ago. He said, do you remember the three boys, Gilad, Ayel, and Naphtali, that went missing, and we tragically learned their horrible fate? This was about 9.5 years ago now. I said, of course, the whole world was gripped by their story for, I don't remember exactly how long it was, 10 days, 12 days, whatever it was. We had no idea what had happened to them. Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, united behind them. And yeah, of course I remember their story. He said, well, what'd you do when you heard about their story? Me? I said Tehillim. I davened a little bit harder. Maybe I learned a little bit better. He said, you know what I did? I did the exact same thing. He said, after davening every day, the shul I was in, they would say some Tehillim. He said, and I said my Tehillim with everybody else. He said, and you know what I did as soon as I walked out of that shul? I went next door to get a bagel and a coffee, and I went about my day. He said, I had a good friend of mine who lives in Har Nof, and we have a weekly conversation. We grew up together. We have a weekly conversation. And he said, I was on the phone with my friend, and we had just found out about what had happened with these boys, the tragic fate of them. And I could tell my friend was very distant in the conversation. And I asked him, I said, what's the matter? Why are you so distant? And he said, well, to be honest, Shalom, I can't focus. All I keep thinking about are these three boys. More than that, all I keep thinking about are the parents of these three boys. He said, it's bothering me. And Shalom said to him, he said, I'm so sorry. He said, I didn't realize you know the families. I just figured they're in the Shtachim, in the settlements. You're in Har Nof, in the Haredi area. I didn't think you knew them. I'm so sorry. I've been insensitive. I wouldn't have had a regular conversation with you. And his friend turns to him and calls him out, and he says, Shalom, I don't know these boys. And Shalom said words that he would forever regret. He said, if you don't know them, why does it bother you so much? And Shalom told me as soon as the words left his mouth, he realized how awful it was. Not just how awful it sounded, the reality of how awful it was. And his friend rightfully called him out on it. And his friend said, Shalom, these are three of our boys. They're the same age as my sons. They're part of our people. Why doesn't it bother you? And Shalom told me that they finished the conversation. He told me he had trouble sleeping, eating the next few days. He was beside himself. His friend was right. Why didn't it bother him to the same extent? Why didn't it bother him really at all? Yeah, he said his Tehillim, and yeah, he said, oh, it was so sad. And he went about his day, and it didn't really impact him. And Shalom told me he needed to do something. This was his mind. He needed to do something to feel like he is part of the Jewish people once again. And the story is fascinating because he went ahead and he went back to the Beit Midrash. And right outside the Beit Midrash, there's a poster board where people hang up signs offering services or needing something or whatever. And he saw a sign and it said, "Young man learning in Kollel needs a kidney." And Shalom said, "Wow, this is what I need. I need to be part of the Jewish community again. I'm going to donate to a young man who needs a kidney. That's great." And not only that, this guy, these are Shalom's words, but you have to hear the end of the story first before judging. He said, "And I'm going to get such a return on my investment. My kidney is going to be sitting and learning Torah all day." He said, "This is great. This is exactly what I want to do." So he called renewal. And we said, "Actually, thank you for calling, but actually that sign must have been up for a while because this person is already matched up and will, God willing, be getting a transplant shortly. But if you're interested, we have other people on our list." So Shalom said, "Well, yeah, I'm interested." So we sent him a test and we got his stuff and we called him back and we said, "Well, we are a match." He said, "Well, tell me a little bit more about the match." So he said, "Well, it's actually a father, a little bit older. He's a father. He's got a bunch of kids, and you're a good match to him." We told him where he lived. We don't give away identifying information, of course, but there's some demographics he wanted to know. Okay, great. And Shalom said, "Well, this is a great opportunity. I wanted to give to this young guy who's going to sit and learn. Here's a father who's supporting a bunch of kids who are sitting and learning. This is great. I'm going to give to him." And it turned out he wasn't a match. And we called Shalom back and we said, "Are you still interested in donating to somebody else?" And Shalom said, "I want to think about it." He called us back a day later and he gave us more of the story. And he said, "I hung up the phone and I was beating myself up. I said, Shalom, the whole reason you did this was because you didn't feel like you were part of a larger Jewish community. And now you're putting restrictions on who you're going to donate to. Only somebody that's like me, that's who I'm going to donate to. Shame on you." This is what he told himself. Shame on you. That's what you're doing. That's not a way to feel like you're part of the Jewish community. So Shalom called us back and he said, "Listen, I want to donate my kidney. I don't even want to know who it is. Just match me up with somebody. Whoever the next person on your list is, match me up, and I want to donate my kidney, no strings attached." We matched Shalom up with an older gentleman from the Five Towns. Modern Orthodox, I could assure you their paths in life would never have crossed if not for this. They don't dress the same. They don't talk the same. They don't look the same. But they share a common bond that they're both Jewish, that they're part of a larger Jewish community. And Shalom donated his kidney to this individual. And I'll give you the postscript to this story is that I got a call from the son of this recipient. And he said, "I need you to come over to the house." Lives in West Hempstead. He said, "I need you to come over to the house. My son is writing his bar mitzvah speech, and I need you to help him write his bar mitzvah speech." I said, "I have a lot of different titles at Renewal. I have a lot of different things that I try and juggle, but speech writer for bar mitzvah boys is not really one of them. I'm not really sure what I can offer of service. Why do you need me to come help him write a speech?" He said, "Because I want him to talk about renewal. Not I want him. He wants to talk about renewal in his speech." I said, "This I got to hear." So I came over to the house and I met with this 12 and almost 13-year-old boy. And I said, "What's going on?" And this boy is wise beyond his years. To hear this, you don't hear this from adults, this level of maturity. To hear this from a almost 13-year-old boy is unbelievable. And he explained to me, he said, "I have to tell you," he said, "about a year ago, my parents sat me down and they gave me an offer. They said, we want to offer you the opportunity to have your bar mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael by the Kotel." And what kid wouldn't be thrilled to have that opportunity? They said, "There's just one catch. You see, grandpa, as you know, has kidney failure and he's on dialysis. He can't travel. He can't make that flight. It's just too difficult. but he gave his blessing. He said he'll be with us on, this was before COVID, so nobody knew what Zoom was. So on Skype, he'll be with us on Skype or FaceTime, and he'll be there with us in spirit, but he can't make the trip. And this boy said to his parents, he said he loves his grandfather. He said, you know, bar mitzvah happens no matter where I am. He said, I want to be with my grandpa. I want to be here, even if it means giving up the trip to Israel. I want to have my bar mitzvah together with my grandpa. He said, I'm willing to give up everything, to give up that whole trip. And he did, sort of, because a few months later, Renewal found that kidney, Shalom's kidney, for his grandpa. And now they were going to be able to celebrate in Israel all together. And he said, I want you to help me write this speech, because it's an incredible opportunity. My grandpa can be with us at the bar mitzvah. Well, I told him, I don't need to write anything. You just wrote your own speech, because that is the most amazing speech I've ever heard. The postscript to this story is that Shalom actually surprised the family, and he flew with his wife to Israel. He met them at the kotel, at the bar mitzvah. They had met a little while before, so he did meet them, but this wasn't the first time they met. But he surprised them. He flew there. He also had a lot of connections in Israel with a bunch of big rabbis, and so he brought the boy to meet with a lot of the rabbis, and just amazing. But what I find so remarkable is that somebody could be so motivated by the fact that something didn't bother them, the fact that 3 boys didn't have an impact. Of course, now we see it had a huge impact. It literally saved somebody's life. But that's real introspection for a person. And that is just one of literally over 1,000 stories that we get to see and witness at Renewal on a regular basis. We're actually in the process of writing a book of some just amazing hashgacha pratis stories that we've gotten to experience, or we've gotten to observe and be in the back seat for, so to speak. It's just an amazing thing. So let me just go through a little bit more of some of the nuances and details, but I would love, if anybody has questions, please, by all means, Judith, if anybody has questions now, go through you're all free to ask a question, to open it up. Just unmute yourself, and I'd love to hear.
Yeah, that's terrific. I think maybe we can, people can share a question that drew you to attending today's seminar, even, or anything you've been wondering about in terms of donating or receiving a kidney. Maybe we can start there.
Yeah, anybody have any question? Well, I'll tell you a little bit, as you're thinking of some questions, I'll tell you a little bit about what the process is by us. So a patient comes into our office, they need a kidney, and we sit them down, we go through some of the details. We have a bunch of hospitals actually that we work with specifically, and those hospitals do a very good job. They streamline the process, they make it very nice for the donor, and the patient gets registered at one of those hospitals if they're not already registered, and now we build out a campaign on their behalf. So the question is, how do we build out that campaign? So as I said before with the librarian, we got to figure out their community and what we can do. And sometimes it's a matter of just the flyer, and they put out the flyer everywhere they can. Other times we go into the community and we do a formal program, and we do that once every 2 to 3 weeks. We're doing these big programs. We're going to be this Motzai Shabbat, we're going to be in the 5 towns actually. We have a Rebbitzin in the 5 towns, Rebbitzin Willig, who donated her kidney a few months ago, and we'll be meeting her recipient for the first time. So it should be a really nice event. And we do testing right there at those events as well. And sometimes we do them on behalf of a specific patient. Sometimes we just do them as general kind of events. And that's how we bring in donors. That's how we build up our pool, so to speak, of potential donors. The next step is on the donor side. So I see that there is a question about how does somebody become a donor? So there's a lot of different ways to become a donor. One is to specifically come to one of these events and get tested there. Another way is just very simply to reach out to us, and we will then send a quick questionnaire to fill out to make sure you're medically qualified to donate. And assuming you pass that, we then mail you a swab kit, which you just do from the comfort of your own home. You send it back to us. We send that into the lab. The lab gives us results, which go into our computer database, and our database finds potential matches. Thank God we're at the point now where we have very often more potential donors than we have the recipients on a specific kind of, there's a lot of matching that goes into it. It's not so simple to just match. But on a very vanilla kind of case, very often we do have a lot of potential donors. So a person is not necessarily going to be a match. They go into our system in case they are a specific match, because we do have a lot of patients on our list that are just not so easy to match, unfortunately. And that's one of the reasons we like to build up our database, especially for those hard to match kind of cases. And what we then do, or what the donor then does, is they go to the hospital for an evaluation. And that evaluation, they are studying you from head to toe. They want to make sure that you are, not just that your kidney is working properly, but that your whole body is working properly. Because remember, the last thing that the hospital or renewal wants to do is put a donor at an unnecessary risk by donating their kidney. We want to dot all our I's, cross all our T's to make sure that you're really healthy enough and that this is really the right thing to be doing. We actually turn away more people than we accept. It might sound crazy, but it has to genuinely be the right thing for you. If you're married, your spouse has to be on board. If you're very young, meaning no offense to younger people, but if you're in like your early 20s, we only start working with individuals at 21. But if you're in your early 20s, we want to make sure that your parents are on board or whoever you're close with. We want to make sure that you really fully appreciate this life decision that it is to be able to donate a kidney. And so you go for that evaluation at the hospital. And if you're cleared, so then the hospital will ask you when you want to schedule the donation, if you're ready to schedule. And all along the way, it's a zero pressure approach. And it has to be that way. In fact, the recipient doesn't even know that anybody is testing for them, which is frustrating for them, but we do it for good reason, for a couple of reasons. But one of the reasons is for you, for the donor, because you shouldn't feel any pressure. If you know that the recipient knows that somebody's testing, even if they don't know who it is, you'll feel pressure to go forward, and we don't want that. It has to be a zero pressure approach. And so once the transplant is ready to be scheduled, it can be scheduled within a couple months. And it's scheduled. The surgery itself is under general anesthesia. It's a real surgery. And what they're doing is they are literally taking out one kidney. So they're cutting on the veins and the arteries and taking out one kidney. And then they're implanting that. For the donor, it is about a 2 to 3 hour surgery. The recovery, as I said before, is about 2 days in the hospital, and then donors should expect to be out of work for about 2 to 3 weeks. It's not that you're bedridden, you're certainly not. You're actually up and walking that night of the transplant, but your energy level is not quite there for a good few weeks. It depends on the profession. It depends if you can work from your cell phone and your laptop. You can bounce back a little bit quicker. You're a preschool teacher and you're running after little kids, it'll take a little bit longer. But generally speaking, it's about 2 to 3 weeks till most donors feel pretty much back to normal. And renewal is there to cover all of those loss of wages. Our strong philosophy is that this should not cost a penny to be able to donate. You're giving your kidney, it's worth a lot more than anything. And so we will cover anything and everything that we are legally allowed to reimburse for, such as loss of wages, that's the big one, travel expenses. We have donors that fly across the country to do this, hotel stay, food expenses. Even if you're local, you're taking an Uber to the hospital or something like that because you don't want to park, or if you're parking, most hospitals will give the donor free parking, so that's usually not an issue. But whatever the case is, we are thrilled to be able to cover all of that. And by the way, those plane tickets are not just for the donor, it's for the donor and their spouse or loved one, because it does take two to be able to do this. You need that emotional support. It's not so much the physical support, but the emotional support. And so we'll cover all of that. And these are just anything that we're allowed to reimburse for. Something as simple as if it's a parent with young kids. So something as simple as take out food for a couple of weeks. Whatever we're allowed to do, which is really anything connected to the act of donation, we are thrilled to be able to do. I see there's another question here about the average recovery period and process for a donor. So again, the recovery is usually 2 to 3 weeks. Most donors by 1 to 2 months describe as if nothing happened. They feel totally as they did before transplant. and amazing. On the mental level, before transplant, you do have to go through a psych evaluation in the hospital. Every hospital is different. Sometimes it's a social worker. Usually it's a social worker. Some hospitals are a psychologist, some are a psychiatrist. Usually it's a social worker. And they want to make sure that you really understand what it is that you're doing. So you do have to go through that. In terms of being physically qualified to donate, people think that you have to be like a marathon runner or a cyclist to be able to donate. You don't, although we do have those. You just have to be in overall good health. You could be taking some medication. I'll tell you some of the things that automatically disqualify a person would be diabetes. Unfortunately, diabetes is the #1 cause of kidney failure, and therefore anybody who's diabetic or pre-diabetic is going to be disqualified. High blood pressure is not an automatic disqualifier, but it's going to depend on the details. If it's a young person and they're taking a bunch of medication, they're going to be disqualified. An older person, minimal medication, likely will qualify. So it depends on the details. Kidney stones depends also on the details. One episode of kidney stones is totally fine. Multiple episodes are usually a problem. Cancer is usually, as long as you're 5 years cancer free, that's usually what they want. But again, it depends on the details for a lot of these things. So those are just some of the physical requirements. I do see that somebody's asking about how to get in touch with us and how to send in paperwork. I'm going to give my email in the chat. And so anybody who wants to get tested or wants more information certainly can email me. So I'm putting that in the chat as we speak. Okay, let's get to another question if there is another question. Otherwise, I'll just share with you a couple more ideas. So one of the things that I found to be the most remarkable is the impact that this has on the donor's life. Of course, you understand that there's a huge impact on the recipient's life. It makes sense. And on their family, of course, they're appreciative and overwhelmed, amazing. But it's actually the donor's life, the donor's family that is so significantly impacted, which is so cool to me, because you see the children of the donor, the siblings of the donor, the parents of the whoever it is, you see them say, wow, I can't believe my loved one did this. How amazing, how selfless, how inspiring. Some of them actually become kidney donors themselves. We do have second generation kidney donors. But even if they don't become kidney donors, they are positively influenced and inspired by this act that their loved one has done, which is just so incredible and so remarkable to be able to see that. Yeah, definitely. Please feel free to unmute yourself, ask questions. You don't have to be shy. Otherwise you're just going to hear me ramble. But I'll give you some more and cut me off at any point with any question or anything like that. Let me just give you a couple more.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's a
please.
point of curiosity. This is a very
Please.
local question, but you mentioned the high sort of numbers or percentages of the Square community. You also mentioned Satmar as well, who donate. I'm just wondering how that came about, as far as you know.
So we are a Hasidic organization. We start in the Hasidic world. I am not Hasidic by any stretch of the imagination. I came on board over 9 years ago, and the goal was to bring renewal outside of the Hasidic world, because they were getting kidneys pretty much exclusively, just about exclusively, from the Hasidic world. I am in the modern Orthodox world, and so my goal was to open renewal up in the modern Orthodox world, in the yeshivish world, in the also in the conservative and reform worlds as well. And it's been an amazing journey. But I'll get back to the Hasidim. What's very interesting about Skver and Satmar, also really a lot of the Hasidim, is that they think with their heart, not their brain. What I mean by that is that they hear that somebody needs a kidney, somebody is dying, and they need a kidney to save their life. They're like, okay, that's it. Like, clear the table, just do it right now. Like they're all in, which is a remarkable testament to their act of chesed, of kindness, and how much it beats in their heart. But they just rush into it, and we have to slow them down and be like, okay, take a step back. It's a process. We got to make sure you really understand what you're doing. We slow them down, but their mindset is like, somebody needs it, and I have the ability to save their life. Do it. Let's go. Forget it. I don't need to know anything else. No, we got to make sure you know everything else. And so we want you to make that more informed decision. But it just speaks volumes of where their heart is. In each community is very different. In the modern Orthodox world, the idea has to percolate a little bit. I remember we did a drive, and I won't say which community, but we did a drive about I just started here at Renewal, so over 9 years ago. And we hadn't really done anything in the modern Orthodox world. They had a connection, so they did something in a specific place in a huge shul, a large community, and they were in shul over Shabbos. They spoke in front of, in the course of Shabbos, Friday night, everything. They spoke in front of over 1,000 people. They had a donor speak, one of our better donors who speaks, and so I'm sure it was a great speech. And I wasn't there for Shabbos, but I did come Sunday because Sunday was the day that you can come and get tested. And they said, we're going to be here from 12 to 6 to come and get tested. And I came, and we had donors who were there to share their experience. We had doctors who were there to talk about it and everything like that. I will tell you, we had a grand total of exactly 0 people that came to get tested. And it was like a failure, like 0 people. We were in front of 1,000 people over Shabbos, and 0 people came to get tested. And I learned a lot from that moment. And I said to my colleagues, I said, you guys have to understand something. I mean, I didn't realize it either until afterwards, but I said, you have to understand something. In my world, you just introduced the idea of kidney donation to them less than 24 hours ago. They really didn't know what it was. It's not realistic. I know in the Hasidic world, you introduce to them and right away they're signed their lines around the corner that they want to donate. My world doesn't work that way. It's got to percolate. It's got to develop. And sure enough, 6 months later, we came back and now we have tons of donors from that location. But it's got to marinate, and our world is a little bit more in the sense of thinking it through in that regard specifically. So every world is very unique and different, and that's one of the things that we've learned along the way, and that we're continuing constantly learning, is how to navigate each world, because they are very, very different. And what speaks to one does not speak to the other. One type of advertising works in one, does not work in the other. One type of messaging works in one. And so it's really getting to know each community. And I'm even oversimplifying that, because even within the modern Orthodox world, what works in Teaneck doesn't work the same in the 5 towns. What works in every community is different and unique. And the key is to be able to learn that. I want to share with you one more thing. I mean, we have time for more things, but and again, if anybody has questions, definitely chime in. We got a compliment from a surgeon last week. I don't know if he wants it public, so I won't say his name, but this surgeon is considered to be like the father of kidney transplants. He is actually he's looked up to in the kidney transplant community by pretty much everybody. So the compliment coming from him is very high praise. And he told us he himself is a Reform Jew. And he told us, he said, I can't remember the last time I've done a deceased donor transplant on an Orthodox Jew, for an Orthodox Jew, meaning to give to an Orthodox Jew, meaning any Orthodox Jew that needs they're all getting living donors, which is an unheard of thing because of renewal. And also a lot of conservative and reform, meaning we're not fully in all of those communities yet, but a lot in those communities as well, and are getting also through renewal. I'd say about 40% of our base of our recipients are coming from the conservative reform or even secular Jewish world. So we're servicing a lot. But to hear that he can't remember the last time an Orthodox Jew needed to get a deceased donor. So that's also something that's important to understand. Getting a transplant from a cadaver, and this is different, by the way, between kidneys and liver. We dabble in liver, so I know a little bit about liver, but in kidneys, a deceased kidney is not as good of an option as a living kidney. The way that I put it is a deceased kidney is a good option. A living kidney donor is a great option. There's a variety of reasons, but the most important one is that the longevity of that deceased kidney statistically does not last as long, sometimes even half the amount of time as a living kidney can last. And so a deceased kidney is a good option, but not a great option. So to be able to be told that anybody who needs a kidney is getting these living kidneys is just a remarkable testament to the Jewish community and how ubiquitous this idea of kidney donation has become. Anybody with any other questions? Okay, let me just, we have a few more minutes, so I don't mind going on a little bit more. Do you want to hear about liver a little bit? Is there
Sure.
interest?
Sure.
So we dabble in liver. When I say dabble in liver, liver is a lot more complicated. So as opposed to a kidney where you're taking the entire kidney because you have two kidneys and you can live a fully healthy, functional life with just one kidney. In fact, by the way, actually, 1 out of every 750 people is born with just one kidney, and many of them go their whole life without even ever knowing that. We've had a couple of people who wanted to donate kidneys get tested only to be told that they can't donate because they only have one. But liver is different because you only have one liver. However, the remarkable thing about the liver that God created is that it can be cut in half, so to speak. It's not exactly half, but it can be cut in half and the liver will regenerate. And so you can take a partial liver and transplant that into somebody else, and both sides will regenerate to roughly a full liver. I'm oversimplifying things a little bit, but that's in essence what is happening. However, because liver is, you're dissecting the liver, so they're literally going like this with the scalpel. They're going around this artery and through this and that part, and there's a lot of ducts and stuff like that in there. And you could imagine that the room for error is a lot larger than with the kidney, where they're just simply snipping off the ends of it. And so for that reason, a liver transplant, a liver donation is considered to be significantly riskier. And that not only is it significantly riskier, because they're cutting through the liver itself, it's a lot more painful. The recovery is enormous compared to a kidney. It is a much more significant recovery than it is for a kidney donor. Many liver donors, it takes them at like 6 months to get back on their feet regularly. Some even longer than that. The liver donor, by the way, is in the ICU for 5 to 10 days after they donate. That's the donor, not the recipient. The recipient's also, but the donor. Kidney donor, if they're in the ICU, that's, God forbid, that's a big problem. But that's a standard practice with a liver donor. So it just gives you a little bit of an inkling into what the risks are and what's involved in donating a liver. With that said, Renewal does get involved in 2 types of liver transplants at this point. And it could be that as things mature in the world of liver donation, for example, there are roughly 7,000 living donor transplants a year, kidney donor transplants rather, 7,000. There are about 400 living liver transplants a year. So 7,000 to 400. I mean, it's a huge multiple. So that gives you a sense of the experience level with liver. And in time, they probably will start to catch up, and our policies will probably change. But at this point, we only get involved in livers when it is an emotional connection, a family member or a close friend that is donating. So then we will get involved. As well as if a person's donating a liver to a child, it's a much simpler procedure to a child. It's somewhat similar to kidney donation when donating to a child, because they're just taking a small little piece. So it's not as complicated, it's not as painful, it's not as long of a recovery. So for a child, we'll get involved, as well as if it's an emotional connection, we'll get involved as well. At this point, we're not comfortable getting involved in an altruistic donor. But as I said, things can change in the process over there. I think we have time for one more question if anybody has a question. Otherwise, I'll just end off. So let me just end off again. You can ask a question in the middle if you want, but I'll just end off by mentioning that, again, we're so fortunate at Renewal to get to meet so many of these individuals, over 1,000 transplants, and it's just a remarkable idea and a remarkable testament to the power of the Jewish community that we look out for each other and we're willing to help. It is our firm belief that if more people out there knew about kidney donation, more people would do it. We're still not necessarily super well known, even within the Orthodox community, as much as we've done a lot of work there. In New York, for the most part, but other places we've done a lot, but there's a lot of miles to go, so to speak. And so just by spreading the word, you could be so helpful talking about it. The more it gets talked about, the more it gets normalized. And that will go, God willing, a long way to inspiring more and more people to potentially donate their kidneys, and to potentially just even to get tested, especially for the people on our list that are just very difficult people to match. It'll be tremendous. And I thank you all for listening. And if anybody has more
Thank
information
you.
or questions, my email is in the chat, jsturm@renewal.org, and we're more than happy to answer them. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for your time and for sharing all of this. And who knows, maybe this session will, further that goal and that mission. I hope so. So thank you very much. And again, Barry Sturm has put in his email here, jsturm@renewal.org, if anyone has any specific questions to follow up. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Everybody,
you.
thank you. Everybody, you can take a little break, and then in about 15 minutes, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, we will be beginning session 2 with Roy Reifman, on the brainstem death controversy. So thank you all, and have a good rest of the day for those of you who will not be joining us in a few minutes.